Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit tre.radio.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with emeraldconnection.net.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney. And a very good evening to you. Nice to have your company on this Wednesday evening. I hope I find you well. You've had a good day and that the evening will be nice and that I can contribute in some way to making it nice and relaxing and enjoyable for you through the medium of Talk Radio Europe. The Irish programme, Live on Eire. Before I tell you what's coming up on the programme this evening, can I say thank you to Howard Brereton for Spain today. Howard's back with you tomorrow between 6 and 7. Howard, I hope that you have yourself a very pleasant evening. And regards to Luna as well. Smashing dog is Luna. That was a nice piece of music, the bilingual piece of music that you played at 10 of it. So there you have it. Now, what was I going to say to you? Yes, I was going to tell you, I don't know why it is, but people tend to always send me texts just when the programme starts. It's gas. I rang a friend of mine, George Lee, that would appear on the programme on a regular basis. In fact, he was with us last week. I rang him one morning at about 9:45. And he didn't reply, or he didn't answer. So at about 11:30 he rang and he said, "Why does everyone ring me between 9 and 10 in the morning?" And I said, "Sorry, George." I said, "I'd be up around 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. So I don't ring George now anymore until after 10. And if he ever rings me before 10, I always say, "Do you know what? It's not that time yet. It's not 10 o'clock yet. You're not clear yet." Anyway, what have we got for you on the programme this evening? Well, Patricia Traynor is back with us. We haven't heard from Patricia in a couple of weeks. And Patricia will continue her story about some of the bodies of water on the island of Ireland. And she's got an interesting story for us this evening. So that's what you will have in the first hour, along with some news from and about Ireland. We'll have some music in there as well. And in the second hour of the programme, we'll have news and we'll also have music. And I will be chatting to Pádraig Óg O'Rourke. Pádraig has just released a new book. It's about his 7th or 8th book. He's a historian and a smashing fella to talk to. And he has just produced a book which is getting considerable traction. I saw it on the Belfast Telegraph today. I saw it over the weekend on pretty much any newspaper I picked up in Ireland. And I've heard a lot about it as well on various media. So well done to Pádraig. So I'm delighted to have him. He has written a book which is called The Disappeared, Forced Disappearances in Ireland, 1798 to 1998. The spectre of the disappeared, those abducted, secretly executed and their bodies buried in remote locations, has overshadowed the debate around the legacy of the Troubles in Northern Ireland for the past 2 decades. Yet, what most people don't realise is that forced disappearances have been part of a violent political conflict or political conflicts in Ireland for over 200 years. Now, this book is the first of its kind, and it looks at the history of the practice in Ireland and identifies all known victims over the last century. Right? It's fascinating. And I've been tucking into it and enjoying it immensely. So I'm very much looking forward to talking to Pádraig Óg O'Rourke about his book, The Disappeared, in the second hour of the programme. So there you go. That's what I have for you. As always, if you'd like to get in contact, you're more than welcome. I would like to hear from you. You can send a WhatsApp message to +34 645 99 67 95. And you can also send an email to studio@tre.radio, or use my own email address if you like, which is Ger, Ger, @tre.radio. Because while I'm on air, I have access to the emails and to the WhatsApps. But when I'm off air, I do have access, but I don't look at them. But my own email I check and is open 24/7. All right, so it's Ger, Ger @tre.radio. Now, as part of Tourism Ireland's Semana de Irlanda to celebrate St. Patrick's Day 2024, the embassy in Madrid, the Irish embassy in Madrid, is presenting 2 film screenings in Casa de Vacas in Retiro Park as part of the programme of events taking place throughout the week. This information came from the Irish Embassy. I think it was last Thursday morning. On Monday, the 11th of March at 7 p.m, there was a screening of Irish film Notes from Sheepland by director Cara Holmes and scriptwriter Orla Barry. The film tells Orla's unique story as an artist and shepherd living and working in Wexford in the southeast of Ireland. As Orla balances her art career with the uncompromising work of caring for a flock of pedigree sheep, the audience sees how these two very different worlds combine and complement each other. The film screening will be in English with Spanish subtitles. That's just one. The following day, Tuesday, the 12th of March at 7 p.m, the embassy hosts a presentation by the President of the Spanish Armada Ireland. Oh yeah, Eddie O'Gorman. We had Eddie on the programme some years ago, and he's always a joy to talk to. And producer Micheál O'Donnell will be there as well. That's followed by a 30-minute documentary titled Armada 1588, Shipwreck and Survival. Spanish Armada Ireland is a County Sligo organisation which is dedicated to commemorating and sharing the story of the shipwreck of the Spanish Armada off the west coast of Ireland in 1588. Their documentary is based on true events and tells the story of one survivor of the 1588 shipwreck and his dramatic escape through Ireland to return home to safety. The documentary will be screened in Espanol. See. It is very important to note that though the screenings are free of charge, one must obtain one's ticket to attend the screening through the Eventbrite page by clicking on links provided. Now, I'm not going to give you the link, not because I'm mean, but because it's very long-winded, right? And I wouldn't expect anybody to be able to do with the slashes and the dashes and all sorts of things. So if you want the link, send me an email at ger, G-E-R, at TRE.radio, and I will send you the information I got from the embassy, and all the links are on that there. Is that all right? That fair enough? I hear Stephen Ritson doing that on a regular basis, so I do the same as him, rather than going through a whole load of info on the thingies. But anyway, there is a limit of 2 tickets per booking, and for a full lineup of all activities taking place during the week, you can find more information on Tourism Ireland's Semana de Irlanda page. All right, you can search for that, and again, if you want it, I can send you the link. The embassy will be following up soon with its special St. Patrick's Day newsletter. I know they're putting that together at the moment with information on all of the celebrations happening around Spain, so I'm looking forward to being able to bring some of that to you. I've also been in contact with the ambassador's office, and I'm looking forward to chatting with the Irish ambassador Frank Smith in and around St. Patrick's Day as well. So that's something that you can keep an ear out for. Now, a former railway station in County Leitrim has been repurposed as a community centre following a regeneration project. The project cost around €2.4 million, and the junction, as it's called, in Ballinamore, is now a base for 3 different organisations offering youth, art and remote working services. The railway station opened on the site in 1887 as a junction of the Cavan to Leitrim line, but the line closed in 1959. The building was used to house St. Phelim's Secondary School in 1962 up until 2014. The Diocese of Kilmore donated the site and station buildings to Leitrim County Council, and it was taken on to restore and repurpose the building to provide space for initiatives which would benefit the community. Money was sourced from the Rural Regeneration Development Fund and is now home to North Connacht Youth and Community Services, Leitrim School of Art and the Leitrim Enterprise Fund's Remote Working Space Hub. Smashing. Great to see a building like that having yet again another life and another story for the walls to tell. If only they could talk. He'd be smashing. A reduction of more than 12% in energy consumption in Ireland must be achieved by 2030 under a new EU directive. Minister for Environment, Eamon Ryan, brought details of the Energy Efficiency Directive to the government yesterday. The target is being described as very challenging, and it will require Ireland to consume 12.6% less energy by 2030. That's only 6 years away, lads. when compared to the 2022 figure. However, the Cabinet heard that improving energy efficiency will provide benefits to society and the economy. These include financial savings for homes and businesses, which will boost cost competitiveness. It should also result in a decrease in the use of fossil fuels and enhanced air quality. A failure to reach the target could result in the European Commission initiating proceedings against Ireland. I hope the weather where you are is a lot better than the weather where I am. It's just beginning to get dark here at the moment on the west coast of Ireland. And I can see the trees out in the back garden and they're blowing like billy-o. Aye, it is very blustery and windy and it's wet and it's cold. It is kind of miserable. It's one of those nights where you be kind of closing the curtains and lighting the fire, just getting nice and cosy and snuggling up and listening to Talk Radio Europe. Now, if you can recall, a couple of months ago, I spoke with a man called David Saunders. David is a good old pal of mine, member of the group Shaskeen. We've spoken to him on more than one occasion on the programme. And the reason I was talking to him was because he had released or given a local college here, St. Flannan's College, in fact, the college where our president, Uachtaráin na hÉireann, Michael D. Higgins, went to school, and it's literally a stone's throw from where I'm sitting at the moment, but they were doing a fundraiser and they wanted to put an album together, and he was asked if he would contribute, so he did. He gave his beautiful version of John O'Dreams to them, and we played it on the programme, spoke to David about it as well. And in that conversation he mentioned, or we spoke about the fact that he was bringing out a brand new album. And I arrived home the other day, and on the doorstep was an envelope with my name on it, and inside was the brand new album from David Saunders, Chance Encounters, Last Minute Notions. I like the title. He's very creative when he comes up with stuff like that, as well as being a great musician. And he has a host of wonderfully talented people on board in this particular album. 14 tracks on it, and I'm delighted to be able to play a track or two this evening. It hasn't been released yet. It goes on sale. It's being launched on the 3rd of March in Corofin. There's a music festival on in Corofin in North Clare, and he will be launching it there on the 3rd. It's a Sunday afternoon at about 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And some of the people that are involved in this, David himself plays fiddle, viola, mandolin and does some vocals. Alan Wallace plays guitar. Mary Liddy is on concertina. Katie Teasby, which you've heard on the programme before, as well as on vocals. On one particular track, she sings a beautiful version of Danny Boy. But she also is on the whistle on a number of tracks throughout the album. Sean Vaughan is on the accordion. Phelim O'Quailon on vocals. In fact, you're going to hear his vocals now very shortly. He also plays bouzouki and piano on this. I'm surprised he's not playing some guitar in there as well, but I suppose there's enough there. Paul O'Driscoll is on double bass throughout the album. John Cronin on saxophone, and Fintan O'Malley is on snare. It was engineered by Audio Monkey Studios, Paul Mulligan. And well done to Louise Wallace. I don't know who Louise is, but she did a beautiful version, or a beautiful job on designing the cover of it, and some beautiful pictures in there as well. Even though now, just in case he's listening, I'll tell you he's not the most photogenic fella in the world. But she did a great job. She put a hat in his head to hide him. So I'm going to take 2 tracks for you tonight on the programme. I'm going to start the programme with the track, and I will more than likely finish the programme with the track from the album as well. Chance Encounters, Last Minute Notions from David Saunders. I wish him well with it. Continued success in everything that he does. And I said I was going to play a track with Phelim O'Quailon's voice on it. It's called Dreaming of Home, and it's lovely. Take a listen. It was actually written by David Saunders as well. So enjoy this.
The country lad hells up the road in search of work to keep him. Big city lights dimmed with smoke, far from the land that reared him. The rural world is all he wants for fruitful work and living. But the big boss says, no, no, you don't walk free in my glass prison. The fresh green grass that he desires, the mist hanging in the air, the songbirds and the bright white flowers, nature everywhere. He sells his soul for a few bob. He covers rent and dues. End of the week back on the tram to country scenes and views. In furrowed soil, sweat no toil, birds in nature's feast. But corner stores sliced ham no more, and noisy city streets. The fresh green grass that he desires, the mist hanging in the air, the songbirds and the bright white flowers, nature everywhere. City lights too bright to hide a constant nightly vision. No longer can he see the stars or wonder about the heavens. One night blurs into the next and youth it passes on. But the country life that he dreamt of, abandoned, too far gone. Powerful folk dictate the pace, decide where all must go. Reality or jealousy, why not through fields I roam? A city boy, now city man, and a train back to the past. In a carriage, no, but in a box, in fields, in peace at last. The fresh green grass that he desires, the mist hanging in the air, the songbirds and the bright white flowers, nature everywhere. The fresh green grass that he desires, the mist hanging in the air, the songbirds and the bright white flowers, nature everywhere.
Nice. Chance encounters, last minute notions. David Sanders, he's been threatening to put that album together for a long time, as he told us, and it's finally arrived. Wish him well with it, and as I said, I'll take it. Sorry, that wasn't David singing, obviously, but he was in there on backing vocals. The dulcet tones that you heard there were the tones of Phelim O'Quailon, and that was a song that was written by David Sanders, all by himself. All by himself. Now, yesterday, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar announced nearly €1 billion for cross-border projects, which he said is the largest ever package of government funding for cross-border initiatives. The return of the power-sharing executive is hugely important for the people of Northern Ireland and has brought renewed hope, he said. The package includes €600 million for the A5 upgrade from Derry to Letterkenny. Which will begin later this year. Two other projects announced will bring Northwest Road connectivity on a par with other parts of the islands. Now, the package also includes €50 million for the redevelopment of Casement Park GAA Stadium in West Belfast, which will maximise the benefits of the joint hosting by Ireland and the UK for the UEFA Euro 2028 Championship. Taoiseach Micheál Martin said that there was an expectation that the Irish government would come up with a contribution for Casement Park, but no specific figures were agreed upon with the UK government. It brings clarity, which can then inform the UK government's response, he said. I saw an interview with Leo Varadkar last night on the 6-1 News on RTE television, and he was asked, do we have any clue at all what the UK government will be putting into Casement Park? And he said no. And was there a commitment? Well, I'm kind of hoping that there will be. It was all terribly vague. So you're kind of wondering, as he kind of saying, look, there's 50 million there now, lads. Show us your cards and off we go. Anyway, the government has also decided to fund a major regeneration of the Battle of the Boyne site in County Meath to the tune of €10 million from the Shared Island Fund. The Cabinet agreed to move ahead with long-standing commitments to the narrow water bridge connecting the Cooley Peninsula in County Louth to the Mourne Mountains in County Down, and it's believed the contract for the new bridge can be signed as early as next month. That's brilliant. The 24 million euro is also to tackle educational disadvantage north and south was announced at the same time, while a new shared Ireland enterprise scheme will get an initial 30 million euro. The money released through the coalition's Shared Ireland initiative also includes 12.5 million euro to increase the frequency of the Dublin-Belfast rail link to hourly service. This will double the existing service, and it can be done as soon as next year, the Taoiseach said. At the announcement at the government buildings, the Taoiseach was asked whether people in Northern Ireland might see this as an all-Ireland ambition rather than a shared island ambition. He said that the funding will not solely benefit Northern Ireland, but will also help border communities. Meanwhile, Taoiseach Micheál Martin challenged the language in the question, saying that this is about partnership. It's not about offering, he said. It is really about a shared island, and the projects were jointly agreed. Oh, good. There you go. That's nice. Interesting statistics. 62% of motorists have cut back on driving. Why? Because of the cost of fuel, and motorists spend an average of €220 per month on vehicle running costs. That's according to a new report by online car marketplace CarZone. In its 2024 motoring report, which is based on a survey of 1,000 motorists, as well as activity on the website, it finds 38% of motorists have or plan to reduce the number of cars in their households to cut back on costs. A total of 47% of respondents said that their car insurance premiums rose in the last 12 months, which is up 11% on the previous year. According to the research, the main consideration for prospective buyers this year is price, followed by reliability, running costs, safety and brand. In contrast, safety is the number one concern for parents when choosing a car, followed by space, affordability and fuel economy. CarZone said that sales of diesel vehicles accounted for 47% of total sales last year, which is down 7% overall. Sales of petrol vehicles, meanwhile, were up 1% to 37, while there was a 6% increase in the sales of hybrids and EVs, even though they accounted for just 16% of the market. However, most drivers are looking at leaving diesel and petrol behind when it comes to purchasing their next car. Among those surveyed, 54% said that they intended to purchase an electric or hybrid when it comes to next changing their vehicle, despite concerns about lack of chargers, expense, reliability and range anxiety. Asked why they would buy a hybrid or electric car, 60% said that it was better for the environment, and 57% cited cheaper running costs. Of last year's car sales, the report shows 36% were through franchise dealers, 31% through independent dealers, 23% through private sellers, and 7% from friends of family. Now, see all the old info you get here on the live on Eire and the crate. Aye. But we have some more music. I think we will. Lorraine Nash is a lady that we have played on the programme before. Lorraine is from County Kerry. Am I right? Yes, she is from County Kerry. From Onascall, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's not Onascall. Or maybe Onascall, maybe. Anyway, she's from County Kerry. She's heading off to Australia and looking forward to that. It's her first tour, I think, in those necks of the woods. And I thought we'd take a track from her, because she's a smashing singer. There she is. Knew she wasn't far away. Here's a song called Sing With Her.
At the back of the band, keeping time strong, but you don't understand, so you won't sing along. The most beautiful of sounds come from the unknown, up from underground, so you better stoop down low and show me what you've got. I won't think of you as weak. No one's asking you to get down on your knees. Take it like the man that you say you are. You can still be strong and sing with her. Do what you must, satisfy your mind, placate hold your cards to your chest, and you want the table too, but you gotta leave some room for me to make my move. And show me what you got, I won't think of you as weak. No one's asking you to get down on your knees. Take it like the man that you say you are. You can still be strong and sing with her. Show me what you got, I won't think of you as weak. No one's asking you to get down on your knees. Take it like the man that you say you are. You can still be strong and sing with her. Show me what you got, I won't think of you as weak. No one's asking you to get down on your knees. Take it like the man that you say you are. You can still be strong and sing with her.
No. From County Kerry, that is Lorraine Nash. That's a song that's called Sing With Her. And Lorraine is heading off, I think, in the next couple of days. In fact, she's heading off down to Australia and doing another few bits and pieces down there, singing songs and getting involved with festivals and that. So if you happen to be listening in that area, keep an eye out for her. I know Australia is a big place, but sure, you can check it out yourself. Meant to say it to you as well, David Sanders' album is available on his website, Sanders, SANDERS.ie, just in case you're interested in picking it up after you hear the next tune, which will be at the end of the programme. I think it's when we'll take the next one from David. Right, I'm going to do a quick break. Will you come back to me just after that? And I would introduce... I forgot to do that now. Oh, I must press that. All right, I'll introduce Patricia to you. She's got another story.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Patricia Traynor joins me on a regular basis to tell us stories about various things. And at the moment, she's in the middle of a series telling us about the various, or some of the waters, or the bodies of water on the island of Ireland. And she's got another story for us right now. So let's take a listen to Patricia Traynor.
Hello, Ger. Today I'm going to talk about Athlone and water. Now, there's an old prophecy which says Ireland will sink below the sea 7 years before the end of the world. In one of the earliest biographies of St. Patrick, based on the book of St. Ultan, Cherachan mentions a prophecy of St. Patrick, which says that Ireland will suffer a great flood and will sink beneath the sea 7 years before the end of the world. This was a way of saving Ireland from the horrors of the Last Judgment. It's a prophecy which is often heard in Ireland, and I even told my students in the Irish Studies class that they should keep a close eye on Ireland because it would be an indication to them that they would only have 7 years left to live before the end of the world. Now, of course, it may be only fiction, but a few years ago, when the volcano in La Palma in the Canary Islands erupted, climate scientists said that there was a real threat of the Cumbre Vieja volcano collapsing into the sea. They also said there is an underwater mountain of 6,000 meters which could generate a huge tsunami if indeed the Cumbre Vieja volcano collapsed into the sea. The tsunami would easily submerge Ireland, but not only Ireland, it would also affect the east coast of North America. Remember, St. Patrick's prophecy was made almost 1,000 years before the discovery of America. So that would explain why only Ireland had been mentioned. It's certainly worth thinking about. Remember what happened to the townland of Auchinish. It was part of County Clare until 1755, when the Great Lisbon earthquake caused a tsunami which split Auchinish off from the mainland. The British later built a causeway linking Auchinish to County Galway to serve their troops in the Martello Tower when it was built in 1811. However, although the causeway is still in operation, Auchinish still feels like an island with a very small population of around 50. Athlone is one of the crossing points of the River Shannon, and it is situated in the centre of Ireland. Now, Ireland is like a saucer, in that the land in the centre is lower than the areas on the coast. And this is the case with Athlone. The ground is soft and ideal for training racehorses. But perhaps it is soft not only because of the rain, but also because of the sea seeping through from below. Athlone got its name from Ath, meaning a ford, and Luan, meaning loins. In other words, the ford of the loins. Now you must be asking yourself, well, what have loins got to do with the name? Well, long ago, rulers of different parts of the country would settle their disputes about access to hunting grounds or crossing points of a river by getting their bulls to fight one another. And this is what happened at the crossing point of the longest river in Ireland, the Shannon. The brown bull of Ulster was set to fight against the white bull of Connaught. The brown bull of Ulster won, and the white bull of Connaught was carved up and then scattered all over Ireland. The loins were kept in the place which is now called Athlone or Athloin, the ford of the loins. Athlone is one of the most important fording points to cross the River Shannon, and because of its situation, it has been involved in wars and invasions. It has been at the crossroads of Irish history for centuries. There's a magnificent medieval castle which is situated on the banks of the River Shannon. It was built originally for King John of England in 1210, but it has been upgraded over the years and is now a magnificent fortress, definitely worth visiting. Being a fording point on the Shannon and the majestic Loch Ree makes Athlone a popular stopping place for people cruising on the river. From Athlone, you can travel south towards Limerick or north to Loch Allen, and there's even the Dublin Canal link for transporting goods and services from Athlone to Dublin. Athlone is a town worth visiting and easy to get to, as it's at the centre of Ireland. Well, we all know Ishgebacha means water of life, but we're not talking here about the properties of whiskey. No, water is life. We depend on water, and our civilization has developed around water. We couldn't survive without it. It's even said that the wars in the future will all be about water. Towns and settlements grow up around water, whether it be coastal water or inland rivers and lochs. If there's one thing we can't live without, it's water. Jin Shanachas recounts many stories and legends to do with water. Water was not seen as an impediment to travel, but rather as a means of linking two places. For example, the ancient Gaelic kingdom of Dalriada, which existed from the 5th century until the 9th century. It encompassed County Antrim in the north of Ireland and Argyll and parts of the Inner Hebrides in western Scotland. It was said to have been founded by Fergus Mór of Ireland. The water between the two branches of Dalriada were never seen as an impediment. On the contrary, at a time when overland travel was difficult, water was considered as a link which facilitated communication between the two areas. The kingdom of Dalriada has an archipelago with many islands and peninsulas, and using small boats called curraghs was the easiest way of moving between them. Dalriada had a strong seafaring culture and a large naval fleet. St. Columkill left Ireland with 12 monks in 563 and founded an important monastery on the island of Iona. His mission was to convert the Picts to Christianity. Iona became famous throughout Europe as a centre of learning and produced works of art and valuable manuscripts. It's also a sacred site where 48 kings of Scotland, 4 kings of Ireland, and 8 kings of Norway are buried. However, water came into play again. The Vikings were excellent sailors, and access to Iona was easy for them. When they arrived in the 9th century, they plundered the monastery of Iona, slaughtered the monks, and destroyed their works of art. This led to the end of the kingdom of Dalriada in 850. Water, which at one point in history had facilitated communication between the various parts of Dalriada, had later led to their destruction, when the Vikings were able to sail easily into the kingdom of Dalriada and destroy it. At the moment, we're suffering from a drought here in Spain, especially in Andalusia, and water may even need to be rationed if it doesn't rain soon. However, Ireland has nothing to worry about. It definitely comes out tops in the water rankings.
I'll walk beside you through the world today, while dreams and songs and flowers bless your way. I'll look into your eyes and hold your hand. I'll walk beside you through the golden land. I'll walk beside you through the world tonight, beneath the starry skies ablaze with light, and in your soul love's tender words I'll hide. I'll walk beside you through the eventide. I'll walk beside you through the passing years, through days of cloud and sunshine, joys and tears. And when the great call comes, the sunset gleams, I'll walk beside you to the land of dreams.
What a voice. That's John Count McCormack. John McCormack. And the reason I played that, that's a song called I'll Walk Beside You. And I played it because he was born in Athlone. And you just heard Patricia talking a little bit about Athlone there. So it was a toss-up between himself or Brendan Shine. And I thought, you know what? John McCormack would be lovely. I'll walk beside you. Thank you, Patricia. And as always, I will remind you that all of Patricia's stories that have been broadcast to date are available on a little podcast series called Stories of Ireland and the Irish. And they're available wherever you get your podcasts. Type in Patricia's name, Patricia Traynor, Trainor is how she spells her surname. All right. And we'll have another scale story from Patricia in the very near future. And Patricia, if you're listening, I wish you and Juan greetings and hope that all is well with you both and the extended family. We kind of get through with a little mix of music. Wait till you hear what I have coming up next. Aye, A little bit different to John McCormick, but you might like it. Credit unions have reported a strong rise in lending in the first 3 months of the year. A total of 1,800 credit union mortgages were issued last year, up 80% on the previous year. In the first 3 months of this year, 112,000 new loans were issued, mainly car and home improvement loans, according to the Irish League of Credit Unions, which represents much of the member-owned lenders in the state. The League said that there had been a big increase in mortgage lending and business loans being issued, with arrears at low levels. Credit unions have some of the lowest interest rates on mortgages, and new buyers, switchers and movers all taking up the offers. Some are offering home loans on rates as low as 2.95%, far lower than banks. Each credit union sets its own interest rate. Around 100 credit unions are offering mortgages. New legislation that came into effect recently will soon allow credit unions that do not offer their members a mortgage to refer customers to a nearby credit union that does offer home loans. The League, whose members represent 92% of the total active credit unions in the Republic, said that 1,200 loans are being issued every day. That's incredible. In total, there were more than 112,000 new loans issued for the first quarter of this year. That's up 4% on the same quarter last year. There's been a big increase in credit union mortgage lending. It's up 15% for the quarter, with the mortgage loan book now going beyond the €550 million milestone. There were 1,800 home loans issued by credit unions last year, and that's up 1,000 from the year before. It's up from 1,000 the year before, an 80% increase. The sector has big plans to take on the banks in the home loans sector. The lenders are looking at setting up a centralised mortgage company with the aim of getting to a point of issuing 1 in 10 of all mortgages in this market. Such centralised services company, I had to have a little cough, would allow the sector to have common mortgages or common mortgage rates, a centralised underwriting facility and shared marketing. This could lead to the sector issuing €1 billion worth of mortgages over the next 7 years. The credit unions were great things. Yes, I said were great things, and they still are, I suppose. I'm a member of a credit union myself. I have savings there, and but they restrict on how much you can save. They restrict on how much you can take out at any one time. They restrict how many times you can lodge. They want to compete with the banks, and sadly, they're doing so on attitude very well at the moment. And that has been my experience over a number of credit unions, and I've heard other people who would have been great credit union supporters say the same thing, which is the pity. The whole idea of being community-based and looking after people in your community doesn't seem to be the biggest driving force at the moment among credit unions. Or a majority of them, I should say. Not all of them, obviously. There's still some that operate in the old way. Although they're not allowed to, but they have that feel about them, which is nice. Around €250,000 worth of GPS hardware has been stolen from farms over the past 2 years. That's according to data which was collected by the Irish Farmers Association, the IFA. Thefts on GPS devices from tractors, particularly on potato and tillage farms, has been a growing problem in Ireland. However, since Christmas, there have been a spate of robberies, with at least 16 machinery yards reporting thefts in Cork, Wexford, Dublin and Meath. The value of stolen hardware ranges from €5,000 to €25,000, according to the IFA. The association's deputy president is Alice Doyle, and she said that the high-tech equipment is needed in order to plant crops like corn and potatoes, and that most affected are tillage farmers and contractors. She said the thefts impose huge increases in insurance costs and time, as it could take 4 to 5 weeks to replace the equipment. Ms Doyle says the GPS theft is a relatively new crime for Ireland, but is being seen more and more in recent years. She said those behind the thefts know exactly where to go and obviously seem to have a market. And that's why we would like, she said, we would be asking, for example, the Gardaí to maybe operate some more checkpoints in these areas, because in certain areas are definitely being targeted. Interesting, isn't it? Sure, look, they rub the eye out of your head and come back for the eyelash. Sometimes that's a great expression in Ireland. When it comes to people that would be involved in theft and things like that. But, yeah, and I know that people are saying, well, why do they leave them in tractors? Apparently there's a certain amount of equipment they can take out of the tractors and the various machines. But, there are others that you just can't take out. And so they have to leave them there overnight and so on. So anyway, tough one. Alrighty, well, we have some more music. I said you'd be interested to hear the next track. I was kind of looking through, I don't know, was it Instagram or something recently? And I saw an interesting piece, a little clip from TikTok. And it said, this song is now at long last available to listen to in its entirety. Do you remember the old song from the Bards, Jim O'Leary and the Bards, called Lanigan's Ball? Right? Well, it has been dressed up and it has been 24ified, if that's such a word. When you hear it, it might ring a bell about the original. It's only a short piece. It's only about 2.5 minutes long. But I took a listen to it in its entirety and I said, yeah, I have to give that a spin because it's very interesting. And I like interesting things. We will take a listen to it. It comes from Chasing Abbey. They call it Learning to Dance. And in brackets, Lanigan's Ball.
6 long years I spent in Dublin. 6 long years doing nothing at all. 6 long years I spent in Dublin, learning to dance for Lanigan's Ball. She stepped out, I stepped in again. I stepped out and she stepped in again. She stepped out, I stepped in again, learning to dance for Lanigan's Ball. She stepped out, I stepped in again. I stepped out and she stepped in again. She stepped out, I stepped in again, learning to dance for Lanigan's Ball. When Jeremy Lanigan battered away till he hadn't a pound. His father died and made him a man again, left him a farm with 10 acres of ground. He gave a grand party for friends and relations who didn't forget him when come to the will. And if you would listen and make your rights, listen of rows and ructions at Lanigan's Ball. 6 long years I spent in Dublin. 6 long years doing nothing at all. 6 long years I spent in Dublin, learning to dance for Lanigan's Ball. She stepped out, I stepped in again. I stepped out and she stepped in again. She stepped out, I stepped in again, learning to dance for Lanigan's Ball. She stepped out, I stepped in again. I stepped out and she stepped in again. She stepped out, I stepped in again, learning to dance for Lanigan's Ball. Lanigan's Ball. She stepped out, I stepped in again. I stepped out and she stepped in again. She stepped out, I stepped in again, learning to dance for Lanigan's Ball. She stepped out, I stepped in again. I stepped out and she stepped in again. She stepped out, I stepped in again, learning to dance for Lanigan's Ball. Learning to dance for Lanigan's Ball. For Lanigan's Ball.
The only thing they didn't put in there was Groovy Julia. Because that feature, didn't it? Groovy Julia. Lanigan's Ball. The Bards is who I remember having hit with it back in the 1970s. That's a group of lads, 3 lads, called themselves Chasing Abbey, and that's their version of it. I must play the Bards version one of the evenings for you, and you'll hear the difference. I must say good evening as well to Dave on Breakfast, Dave Break with Dave. And I just got a voice message from him there on the telephone, and good to hear from him as always. And just a reminder, actually, I will be sitting in all next week for Dave on breakfast, so it'll be daybreak with me, not Dave, next week, Monday to Friday. I'm looking forward to that, and I hope that Dave will have himself a very nice few days off as well. He'll tell you more about that, no doubt, when he joins you over the next couple of mornings between 8 and 10. I'm going to take a quick break. Come back to me just after that. I have more music and I have more news. And we're not too far away from the actual news at the top of the hour. So we have about, what have we got? 7.5 minutes before we do that.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
This is Talk Radio Europe.
Saving on your insurance is easy with Linea Directa.
Easy? How easy?
Well, it's like riding a bike.
Oh, you mean like falling off a log?
Piece of cake.
Ah, easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Talking of which, have you got any of that cheesecake left? Switch and save on your insurance with Linea Directa. Maybe that's why 9 out of 10 satisfied customers recommend us. Call 919-181-130. That's 919-181-130 and get the best price for car, bike and home insurance. Conditions apply.
What is it that you love the most about living in Spain? Weather? The landscapes? The music? Sports perhaps? People? Or just daily life?
Spain Today.
If you want to get informed about the main things you're interested about in Spain.
Presented by Howard Brereton.
Join me on Spain Today, live on weekdays from 6 p.m. here on Talk Radio Europe.
Talk Radio Europe.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
As always, if you would like to get involved, or if you'd like to pass a comment or ask a question or whatever the case might be, you can certainly communicate with me. Our WhatsApp machine is ready and willing to accept any messages. +34 645 99 67 95. Not voicemail, or not voice notes though, cause I can't access those because the machine is in Spain and I am in Ireland, but I can see it, but I can't hear it, if you know what I mean. All right. Or you can send an email to studio@tre.radio as well. You would often hear me talk about the GAA, and you will know, if you know anything about the GAA, that it's in every community in the country, and it's a wonderful organisation, even though we all give out about it. Oh, we do. We give out like billy-o about it on a regular basis, but it's great. It really is. And I know that one of my 3 children is still involved with the GAA. Another fella kind of was for a small while, and the young lady, she was involved for a small while too, although her current partner, he's involved as well, still at a very high level within the GAA. But anyway, the GAA as we know it will be brand new. It's a brand new association by 2027. Now that's according to the organisation itself. It was announced yesterday at a media event at Croke Park that the Camogie Association and the LGFA, so Camogie is the hurling for girls, all right, and the LGFA is the Ladies Gaelic Football Association, so the football for the ladies. They will be fully integrated into the new association within 3 years. At present, you've got, 3 separate associations, which never made sense. But anyway, former President of Ireland, Mary McAleese, has been chairing a steering group for the past 18 months. And yesterday, it was recommended that by 2027, there will be just one new association. This means one club and one county board working to provide games, finance and facilities for its members. The recommendations come at the end of a detailed consultation process involving more than 30,000 respondents. The committee said it was clear that this was what the membership wanted to happen. Over the next number of years, staff in both the Camogie Association and the LGFA will be subsumed into the bigger new organisation or association, and there will be no job losses, which is, I suppose, excellent news. Let's take a very quick piece of music before we go to the news at the top of the hour. I was having a look through the Wexford People newspaper today, and I said to myself, Kingfisher from Wexford. Haven't played them because I saw an article about them. Haven't played them in a while. Here they are.
Company. Well, I suppose that's true. And all the stars laid out before me. Oh, the things I wouldn't do. There's an angel in the corner playing 45 with death. If he's against us, who'd be for us? She left the jokers in the deck. Heart in the water, blood in the fire. Back when I loved you, fueled by desire. But in the end we're all surrounded. Now that the walls are caving in, look at your secrets all consume you, babe. See how the devil plays to win. Did you listen to your mother? Did she show you how to be? Can she stand across the water? Can she calm the stormy seas? Have you ever crossed your borders where the ocean meets the sky? Now and then in the evening is where a man might go to die.
I like that. It comes from Kingfisher from County Wexford, Heart in the Water. I think they are about to embark on or are currently in the United Kingdom, and they're doing some touring and they're wowing audiences, or they're going to wow audiences. I can't remember. But anyway, they're excited about it and wish them well. All right, news on the way. Lots more to come with the second hour.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
When I was young and foolish, now I'm old and foolish. When I was young and foolish, I used to think that if I won the lotto, I wouldn't give up work because I just love going to bed at night, thinking, well, this is what I've done today. And, yeah. But I'm over that now. I'd give it up in a heartbeat. I don't mean this work. No. I love this. This isn't work at all, sure. No. But I'd employ a producer. Would you? Just hand me the script and let me at him. Simple as that. Would you give up work now? You probably gave up work a long time ago, did you? I don't know. With the different age groups that we have listening, some people will be working. Some people will have retired already. Some people might be wealthy enough that they never had to work. My God. You know what you're missing. It's great fun. In this hour of the programme, yes, we have an hour to do. Sorry about that. I'm going to be talking to Padraig O'Rourke. Padraig is the author of a new book which is called The Disappeared, Forced Disappearances in Ireland, 1798 to 1998. And if you were listening at the top of the programme, I gave a kind of an outline as to what we'll be talking about. But I won't go into that again because he'll be joining us very shortly, so it's kind of repetition. But suffice to say, Padraig is a historian. He is an author. He has about 7 or 8 books under his belt at this stage and probably has more in the woodwork. Hopefully he has anyway. But he's always a joy to talk to, so I'm looking forward to my chat with him about The Disappeared. Good news for people in County Kerry looking for broadband, and bad news for anybody who already has it. 2 different stories. The first, let's go with the happy news. Householders in County Kerry or in Kerry Valley, Kerry Valley, that was the last place in Ireland to be connected to the electricity grid almost half a century ago. Will have high-speed fibre broadband by late summer. The National Broadband Ireland, NBI, the firm rolling out the National Broadband Plan, confirmed that works are underway in the Black Valley in Kerry to install a high-speed fibre broadband network. Black Valley residents were only connected to the national grid in 1976, imagine. Wow. With locals once joking that the area got its name for having been left in the dark for so long without electricity. Now Black Valley householders will get high-speed broadband that will be comparable with the fastest connections in Dublin, Cork and Limerick cities. Other areas in the process of obtaining high-speed broadband include Irish islands such as Bear Island off West Cork. That's great. And that's going to do wonderful things for those small communities, because people will be going back to those areas to work because they could work remotely. That's the one thing I love about the way technology. Look at me sitting in Ireland on the West Coast, chatting to yourself. Where are you? Freliana. Is that where you are? Or Malaga, or you're in Madrid, or you're in Barcelona, or Bilbao, or somewhere. You could be in Frankfurt, or you could be you could be the next door neighbour of Stephen Ritzen's in Cologne, or something like that. I don't know. Or you could be down the road in Ennis. Telecoms companies, here's the bad news. Telecoms companies are increasing their prices, putting further pressure on household budgets. Eire, Vodafone and TRE Ireland are to hike their prices in the next 2 months. The bills for some people on bundled plans will rise by €96 per year. It comes after Sky Ireland said that it would hit many of its 600,000 customers with price rises in its broadband and TV subscription fees. The Sky move will mean an average increase for households of around €52 a year from April. The average increase of 4.1% follows a similar hike last year. I only got fibre broadband into this particular establishment. Was it June of last year? And when I signed the contract with Eire, because that's who I'm with, it had just arrived, and that's why I couldn't get it beforehand, and because I'm outside of Ennis. But when I signed the contract, it actually said that the price was going to be going up in April. But anyway, now it emerges that the state's largest telecoms provider, Eire, will be raising prices from the start of April as well. Like TRE Ireland and Vodafone, Eire has switched to a model of annual increases of a set percentage amount plus the rate of inflation. Eire now increases prices by the Consumer Price Index for December of the previous year plus 3%. The monthly costs for customers who joined Eire or reconnected their Eire services before the 1st of March this year will rise by 7.6% from April the 1st. Wow. It will mean that some plans will be going up by €8 per month or €96 per year. Eire said its costs were rising. It's investing €250 million in telecoms infrastructure to deliver fibre connectivity to 84% of homes and businesses across Ireland. Asked whether announcing annual set increases plus the rate of inflation was not anti-competitive, it said it adhered to industry standards and fully complied with all regulatory requirements. Here's a story that, it's on the headlines. It's in the headlines every day. A lack of basic hygiene facilities is among the main concerns of dozens of asylum seekers living in a tented community which has sprung up outside the International Protection Office in Dublin. Now, the Department of Integration stopped offering accommodation to all asylum seekers on the 4th of December last amid a nationwide shortage. Latest figures, which were published yesterday, show that since then, 1,382 male international protection applicants have come to Ireland, and of those, 970 have not been offered any accommodation. As a result, there are now more than 40 tents outside the International Protection Office on Mount Street in Dublin. Some people have been there for more than a month, waiting for accommodation to be offered to them. The men who are regularly bedding down there spoke about the challenges that they face. Chief among them is weather, verbal abuse, and the lack of a place to wash or access toilet facilities. Spokesperson for the Department of Integration said that Ireland is currently accommodating more than 101,000 people between those fleeing Ukraine and international protection applicants. Unfortunately, despite the tireless efforts of the department, there is currently an accommodation shortfall, particularly with respect to single adult males. As a result, the department is not able to provide accommodation to all single male international protection applicants, with priority given to those within this group with identified vulnerabilities. The spokesperson went on to say that the drop in day-to-day services... The spokesperson went on to say that drop-in day services are provided to all non-accommodated persons who wish to avail of them. In such centres, IP applicants can access facilities including hot showers, meals and laundry services 7 days a week. Currently, this department, the statement said, has agreements with 3 charities to provide these services in Dublin. A final comment said that the department is experiencing increasing numbers of international protection applicants requiring accommodation, with all efforts being made to ensure sufficient capacity is maintained for arriving families, including those with children. As I said, the story not of the hygiene necessarily, but the story of those seeking international protection or protection and those fleeing the war in Ukraine, making the headlines across Ireland on a daily basis. Let's go to County Kildare, shall we? Just picture this. Act of Innocence. Played it before for you. Hope you'll enjoy it again.
I wanna catch the butterflies you're feeling. I wanna dance until we can't no more. I wanna be the alibi you're needing. I wanna lay beside you on the floor. I wanna be the exit when you're leaving. I wanna love you like this forevermore. I wanna take the pink in your complexion. I wanna paint it all over the walls. I wanna take the future you're expecting. I wanna make it elegantly yours. I wanna find the beauty in the wreckage. I wanna love you like this forevermore. Don't you let you slip out of my hands. It's some kind of act of innocence. I wanna bathe in all the tears of crying. I wanna make you part of my charm. You know my baby, I would die trying to find the space in your arms. I wanna stay beautiful and silent. I wanna love you like this forevermore. I wanna carry all your burdens. I wanna put them up on my back. Beside the world I've got on my shoulders. But don't you worry about that. Just let the light come on in from the curtains. Just let me love you like this forevermore. Don't you let you slip out of my hands. It's some kind of act of innocence. Don't you let you let this ever end. It's some kind of act of innocence. Act of innocence.
Yeah. From County Kildare, picture this, and a song called Act of Innocence. A very quick break, and I will be back to you to talk with Padraig Og O'Rourke about his most recent book, which is called The Disappeared. Very much looking forward to that conversation.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
The Disappeared. Now, when you hear that, if you're like me, You might be thinking about the Provisional IRA and the Troubles in Northern Ireland and the British Army, 1969 to 1998. But you'd be wrong, like I was wrong. And I'll tell you why. And there's another man going to join me right now to tell me. He's the author of a book which is called The Disappeared: Forced Disappearances in Ireland, 1798 to 1998. Padraig Og O'Rourke. Good evening and welcome to Live on Eire. Thank you for joining me to talk to me about your book, The Disappeared, which was only launched on the 8th of February. How are you this evening?
Not too bad, Ger. Thanks very much for the invite. Great to talk to you.
And you too. This was launched on the 8th of February. And before we start talking about the book itself and The Disappeared, did you have a launch party? Did it go well? And are book sales where you're hoping they would be?
Book sales are going well at the moment. It's the second most popular Irish non-fiction book in Amazon sales. Obviously, I'm hoping with publicity like this to push it to number one. We did have a launch party, and the guy who launched it is a very interesting guy called Jeff Knupfer. Now, you mentioned there at the beginning the Provisional IRA, the disappeared Northern Ireland, and that's the aspect of it in Ireland most people are familiar with. Their bodies were recovered by a group called the Independent Commission for the Location of Victims' Remains. So they would have been looking for the bodies of people like Jean McConville, Captain Robert Nyrak, Columba McVeigh, etc. And prior to that, the reason why he got that job is he had been a Manchester policeman before that, and he had helped locate the bodies of the Moors murder victims.
Of course.
So those children who were disappeared in Manchester. So he's one of the world's leading experts. So it was very humbling for me that he was willing to endorse the book by launching it.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. And when you mentioned The Disappeared, I think you make reference to it very early on in the book. Are there just 3 remaining now, I think, from the Troubles period that haven't been found?
From the Troubles in the north, there are 3 remaining that haven't been found. There is Captain Robert, possibly a 4th. There's Captain Robert Nyrak, who's the British Army captain. There is Columba McVeigh. There's a man called Joe Linsky. Joe Linsky had been a member of the Provisional IRA who was killed by his own. But there's also another man most recently that came up in this research. He is a guy from Armagh. I'm just seeing if I have the name here. It escapes me at present. Okay. Even in the north, when we think we know it quite well, there can still be new cases coming up.
Before we talk about some of the disappeared and some of the instances and what's in the book, what got you interested in this?
Well, I'm originally from County Clare. I've been publishing history books and writing them for almost 20 years now. And I suppose my both of my parents and 3 of my 4 grandparents come from Milltown Malbay in West Clare, a place famous for traditional music. And when people up there, relatives, heard that I was writing my first book in the War of Independence, Clare, they said, "Are you going to write about the soldier in the bog?" I said, "What soldier in the bog?" And they said, "There's a soldier buried in the bog out in Drumbawn near Moy." Right. So I looked into it, and local people had a story that there was this British soldier stationed in the area. He'd been going to visit a local girl he was seeing. This would have been in 1921, just before the War of Independence came to an end. And he was picked up by the so-called good old IRA of that time, I suppose, the original Irish Republican Army. And they thought he was a spy. They interrogated him. He wouldn't tell them anything, including his name. And they executed him and buried him in a bog. And local people took me up there and showed me, one farmer in particular, PJ Lapnan, showed me exactly where the body was. And they had marked the spot with a wooden cross. So I was very interested in this. I mentioned it in my book. I went on to do a PhD in the War of Independence. And when I was researching that years later, maybe 4 or 5 years later, I found a British Army document listing all of the soldiers who had gone missing in Ireland. And amongst them was a soldier who had gone missing in June, 11th of June, 1921, in the exact same area near Milltown Malbay. And his name was Private George Duff Chalmers. So I was like, brilliant. I've solved the mystery of who the soldier is. I talked to PJ and some other locals, and we decided that we would mark his grave with a proper grave slab, not because we had any great respect for this British soldier. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it would have been far better if he had never come to Ireland and had died an old man in his bed, and if there had never been any British soldiers here. But I just thought, just to make sure that nobody interfered with the grave and to make sure that it would be properly marked and he got a name in death, that we would go up and mark it. And in fact, the grandson of one of the executioners helped me carry that cross slab in, or that grave slab in. So we laid it down, thought no more about it. I banged out a quick article for History Ireland magazine, who I write for, and that article went up online. Thought no more about it. And then a few years later, the Chalmers family in Scotland, one of them was doing his family tree, and said, who's this cousin my father's or grandfather's had never heard of, George Duff Chalmers? Put his name into Google. Up came the article, and he was horrified by what he saw, that his long lost distant relative had been executed and buried in secret in a bog in Clare. So he contacted the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, who were responsible for the burial of British Army soldiers in the First and Second World War. They got on to An Garda Síochána, the police force in Ireland. They had the body exhumed in May of 2018, and he was reburied formally in Grange Gorman Military Cemetery in Dublin. And the Chalmers family were so thankful to me that they sent me an invoice to the funeral, as it were, and have been sending me Christmas cards every year since. So I went to the funeral, and I was introduced to two guys from the British Ministry of Defence who were there. And I sat down with them, and I said, okay, well, do you want to... I pulled out a list out of my pocket, and I said, these are the rest of the British soldiers. Which one do you want to find next? And they were horrified. They really seemed like they wanted nothing to do with it. They had no idea there were so many. They didn't want to touch it. And they said very quickly, oh, no. That's a matter for the Commonwealth War Graves. So I said, fine. I went to the Commonwealth War Graves, and they said, oh, no, we can't touch that. That's a matter for An Garda Síochána. And I went to An Garda Síochána. And despite the fact that they had used my research to identify and exhume this burial, I was laughed at. I was told that my research was nonsense. So I suppose that was the genesis of the book. And now that it's published, I have the nephews, I have the grandsons of people whose bodies who were disappeared, who are still missing, and they're coming to me because it seems that this is a totally grey area for the authorities. And I know it's 100 years ago, but as I said, people's nephews, people's grandsons are still alive, and those families want the bodies back.
Now, your subtitle on the book, Forced Disappearances in Ireland, 1798 to 1998. 1798 was the Wolf Tone Rebellion, if my history stands me well. Am I right?
Yeah, inspired by the American Revolution, and of course in 1776, and the French Revolution in 1789. And then, of course, we had the attempted French invasion of Ireland to link up with the Irish Rebellion in 1798. And Wolf Tone, I suppose, and the United Irishmen are regarded as the founding fathers of Irish republicanism, and rightly so. But it's interesting that they used very brutal methods when it came to silencing informers. In some cases, before killing them, they would cut off their ears, cut out their tongues, and sometimes behead them. And in other cases, they actually abducted them and disappeared them. And I'm thinking of a case of a guy in Belfast in 1796 called David Newall. He had been a United Irishman, had been turned by the British Crown forces, gave evidence identifying 200 of the United Irishmen that he had known. And basically a number of them were arrested and some were executed on his evidence. And the wise thing for Newell to have done, of course, would have been to left Ireland and go into hiding with the money he got from the British Secret Service or whoever. He didn't. He decided to hang around Belfast. He wrote a book detailing his exciting adventures as a spy for the British. This was not a clever thing to do. No. The United Irishmen picked him up and took him away, executed him, and he's buried next to a bridge in Antrim where his body still lies. Wow. In other cases, there were less I suppose, less noteworthy informers, guys at a local level who wouldn't have had such an impact on the United Irishmen. But I'm thinking of people like school teachers, blacksmiths, who were alleged to have been giving information to the British in the rebellion, and they were abducted. And in some cases in the 1850s, people cutting turf would actually find the skeleton, panic and think it was a murder victim, and someone would say, oh, no, that's where the rebels in 98 buried the school teacher or whoever that's missing. Wow. It's also important to say that whether we're talking about, in the interests of balance, whether we're talking about the 1798 rebellion, whether we're talking about the War of Independence, or whether we're talking about the Troubles in the more recent North, although the majority of disappearances have been carried out by Republicans, the British Army and British paramilitaries have also been responsible for a number of disappeared as well.
And you make the point as well, is that whatever the number is that were disappeared in the most recent troubles in Northern Ireland, 1969 to 1998, is that it is nothing really to the numbers of people that were disappeared by both sides in the War of Independence, in the Civil War, and before that as well. It's something that has been used for generations, for over 100 years or 200 years, because you're talking about 200 years in your book there. And it's amazing that we think about the Troubles in the North when we think about the disappeared, isn't it?
Well, if we, just to keep the numbers kind of simple for your listeners, if you look at the provisional IRA in the modern Troubles, they would have disappeared less than 20 people in a 30-year period. If you go back to the original Irish Republican Army of Michael Collins and Eamon de Valera's time in the War of Independence, they disappeared 5 times more people. They disappeared 94 people in a 3-year period.
Wow.
So it was far more. And I think there's political reasons for why we don't know about it and we don't talk about it. Basically, for the existence of the state, the two main parties have been Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, who trace their origins obviously back to the War of Independence period. And Sinn Féin for that time have been in opposition, and it's a very useful thing at a political level to, whenever Sinn Féin are doing well in the polls, and they can be talking about housing or they can be talking about employment or something else, to say, oh, well, look at what they did, Jean McConville that disappeared and so on. But if we were to start digging up these bodies, or if we were to start examining that history and say, well, hang on, founding members of Fianna Fáil, people like Frank Aiken, Aiken disappeared or gave the orders to disappear an Orange man in South Armagh called William Fraser. So he seems to have personally given that order. He was a founding member of Fianna Fáil. Another one would be Sean Moylan, who was involved in the capture and disappearance of an RIC constable called Williams, whose body is still missing and is buried in East Cork. And by the way, William Fraser's body appears to be still missing as well.
Okay.
And if we go on the other side of things in Fine Gael, William McCarthy, if we go to Fine Gael, you have Richard Mulcahy, who was the IRA chief of staff during the War of Independence, when the IRA disappeared 94 people.
Oh.
And I mean, those were done under his watch, and in some cases, again, it was people who were later founding members of Fine Gael who carried out those shootings. So sometimes we have a very sanitized view of the War of Independence. And don't get me wrong, I believe, of course, that the Irish people have a right to independence, but sometimes we have overly rose-tinted glasses when we're looking back at the past. And like people will stand up and for political reasons, they will talk about, Michael Collins at Béal na Bláin. They'd say, Michael Collins, the brilliant Minister for Finance. Michael Collins, the brilliant rebel organiser. Michael Collins, the statesman. Michael Collins, the peacemaker. They will never say, Michael Collins, the IRA Director of Intelligence, who was responsible for the execution of almost 200 people as spies during the War of Independence, whether they were disappeared or not. So sometimes politicians find it very easy to draw a hard and fast line between the kind of violence that was used to try and establish Irish independence in the 20s and the kind of violence which was used for similar political aims in the North more recently. But me as a historian and me as somebody who's, fascinated by these aspects, the hidden history, if I know that term is often overused, but in this case it's literal, I find it much harder to draw those distinctions. And I don't want to just talk about the GPO in 1916 and that side of the independence struggle. We need to look at it warts and all.
I was struck when I picked up the book, when it originally landed on my desk a couple of weeks ago, and I picked it up as you would with new books that you get. And I went to the contents, and everything there is laid out very nicely. And the disappeared and the people involved you're talking about, you've grouped them together. So I was looking down through it. Disappeared by British forces, spies and informers, yeah. Women, yeah. Protestant loyalists, yeah. And then I hit upon the next one, which was identifiers. And I said, what are identifiers? I'd never heard the expression before. Tell me, I know now, but tell us what the identifiers or who the identifiers were.
They'd be people who were worth a book in their own, and not all of them were disappeared. Generally, for those familiar with Irish history, we talk about, the weakness in the Irish rebel ranks was always there would be some Irishman who would sell us out to the crown for money, and that brought down the 1798 rebellion and the Fenian rebellion. And by the time it got to the War of Independence, they had realised from learning Irish history how important it was to stop spies and informers. But we tend to just talk about them as though they were British spies. There were actually different types of people gathering information for the British. Some of them were Englishmen who came over, who were kind of like bounty hunters, I suppose you could call them, that they knew there was a big price on Michael Collins' head or Dan Breen's head, and they could get £1,000 or £5,000 if they caught them. They were kind of freelancers. You also had an informer, is somebody, I suppose, who comes across a bit of information in the community and maybe writes it in a letter and sends it in. A spy is somebody who goes out actively looking for information and maybe is involved in getting paid for it and meets with the British forces regularly to impart information. And an identifier really, I suppose, is the most dangerous of the lot, because they are somebody who is doing spying work, but who is willing to actually go out with the British forces on their raids during the War of Independence, direct them around the countryside, lead them to the houses of rebels, and point out who is who and identify them. And that term identifier actually comes from the recently declassified British Army documents in the Imperial War Museum of Britain, and British intelligence officers talking about the value of identifiers. And often these people, because they didn't want to be recognised in the community, would often dress up in the black and tan or the British Army uniform with people used to wear driving goggles when they were driving, because these cars were all open top. So that would disguise their eyes. They'd have their uniform cap pulled down. They'd have their coat collar pulled up, and maybe sometimes a handkerchief or something across their face. So they actually went out and would go into people's homes and would point out who was who, would say, oh, don't raid that house, they're loyalists, they're loyal to us, but if we go up the road here and take the next left, immediately after that, the first house on the right is the Sweeneys and their notorious rebels, will burn them out or search their haystacks or whatever.
You know my history as well.
There you go. So that's what an identifier is, and I suppose there's a number of them that are still missing. There's one of them. There's an interesting story behind. There's a guy in Tipperary called Thomas Kirby.
Yes.
Kirby was from a working class background in South Tipperary. He had joined the British Army in 1898. He was kicked out for basically they decided this guy was mad or indisciplined or had mental health problems. He joins the British Army again in 1916. There's a lot of slaughter on at the front. The British Army need cannon fodder, and Kirby is re-enlists in the army. But again, he's dismissed a short time later. And when the British are active in Tipperary during the War of Independence, he teams up with the the Lincolnshire Regiment who are stationed in his area. And he takes on this job as an identifier and goes out with them, pointing out places. Because, again, they don't know one crossroads from another. They don't know the countryside, the customs of the people. But he's a local man. He's getting paid for this information. He's down in the pub spending his money. And presumably because he's been in disguise in this British Army uniform, he thinks the IRA don't know who he is. But the IRA capture him coming back from this pub, and they take him up the hills. They try him basically as a spy, an identifier, a traitor, and they take him up a hillside and give him a shovel, and they make him dig his own grave. And he's then executed, and it appears that he was actually shot through the back in the act of digging the grave. And we know that because the body lay there for 70 years. And then in 1990, there was an IRA veteran who was on his deathbed, and he said, "My wish is that you dig up Kirby," and told them exactly where the body was buried. So local people went up, they excavated, they found rosary beads and a button off a British Army jacket, and they went, "Oh, there's something here, all right." They called in the guards. The body was excavated. John Harbison, who was the state pathologist at the time, came down, and he actually did an autopsy on the body.
Really?
And he decided it was in that good a state of preservation, having been on the bog or the hillside. So he came up with this detail that he was probably shot through the back while bent over digging the grave. But he was reburied formally in a cemetery nearby. And it's interesting that his boots, his cardigan, and he had a kind of a makeshift British Army uniform on him at the time. And those artefacts, like, you can go into the Tipperary Museum in Clonmel, and you can see his boots and his pipe and his pencil and his scapular and his belt and his cardigan sitting there in a glass display cabinet of somebody who was executed, disappeared 100 years ago, and their body was found in just as recently as 1990.
Oh, incredible stuff. Will you, another one that I looked at that I was fascinated with, and when I read through it, it was fascinating. It was chapter 15, which is the truce period. And I would have imagined that when the truce was called and the clock struck midday, that everything would have ceased. But that wasn't the case, sure it wasn't.
No, there were a few...
And sorry, just to explain, we're talking here about the War of Independence.
Yeah, so on the, and I do actually have another book about the clock striking 12 on that day. It's called Truce, Murder, Myth, and the Last Days of the Irish War of Independence. That's what I did my PhD on. There were some loose ends to be tied up as far as the Republicans were concerned. And what happens during the War of Independence, sometimes the IRA would decide to disappear people. And they would do that for reasons like... they didn't, if there is no body, it's harder to bring a prosecution in court. Another reason, and so far we've mainly talked about spies and informers, it's important to note that in the 1920s, a lot of those disappeared during the War of Independence were black and tans, were RIC constables or British soldiers, and not just civilian spies. But and often when they were disappeared, the IRA's logic for doing it, and sometimes they did just shoot them and leave them on the road. But when they did that, they found that the British would take revenge, would carry out what were called reprisals, and they would burn down local houses or kill local Republicans for revenge. But if you hide the body, the British don't know whether he's dead or alive. And if there's a chance this British soldier is still alive, they don't want to jeopardize his safety by carrying out revenge attacks. But to answer your question, when the ceasefire comes in at 12 midday on the 11th of July, 1921, ending the War of Independence, the killing slows, but it doesn't stop. There's a small number of killings, but because they don't want to affect the ceasefire, those killings are almost all disappearances. And really, it is tying up loose ends. For example, there was a teenage boy called... William Nolan, who was an alleged informer. He had attempted to join the RIC during the War of Independence, possibly as a means of getting protection once the IRA had discovered that this guy was a spy. And he was captured on the day of the truce. He was held until after the ceasefire, and then he was executed and secretly buried. There's a guy called Edward Parsons, who was the son of an Englishman living in Cork. Parsons, according to Eire reports, had been involved in giving information which led to the assassination of the mayor of Cork, Thomas McCurtain, by the RIC in March of 1920. So because he had been tailing McCurtain and involved in that, he was a definite target, according to the IRA. And they actually captured him during the truce, and they tried him as a spy. And he was executed, and he's buried somewhere between the Kinsale Road roundabout and Cork Airport. He's along that stretch of road there somewhere, and his body's never been recovered.
That's fascinating. In the book as well, something that I was, and again, just to say to listeners, is that not only are, what you're telling me right now, that's reproduced in the book, but you go through and you itemize every single person in Ireland that was disappeared from, is it 1921 to about 1998 or thereabouts. So their stories are all there as well, which are fascinating. But one of the things that I was not taken aback by, but surprised by, was that members of the RIC, who they found it difficult to get employment if they didn't join up with, let's say, with the RUC in Northern Ireland. And a lot of them would have gone to England to try and, start a new career or get jobs. And some of them even formed an organization or a group, and they tried to lobby for work specifically for former RIC officers. And there was a whole network there, wasn't there?
There was, and they had big demonstrations at Speaker's Corner in London, and they were complaining that because the Black and Tans, even in England, had such a bad reputation, they couldn't get employment. Some of them stayed and remained in Ireland and were able to settle here. And I suppose whether you could stay in Ireland or not depended on your reputation and what you had done during the War of Independence.
Yeah.
If we talk about one RIC man who made the decision to remain in Ireland, it was a guy called Michael Williams. Now, Williams was from County Offaly. He'd been stationed in Cork during the War of Independence. And like that guy, Edward Parsons, we just talked about, the IRA suspected him of being involved in Thomas McCurtain's assassination. Now, I would argue that Michael Williams was probably not involved, but he had the misfortune to be appearing in court the following day to give evidence. He came in from whatever county station he was stationed in.
Okay.
He picked his accommodation in the same hotel that a lot of the known assassins were staying in, and the IRA assumed on the basis of that intelligence, they got the hotel register, saw who was there, and said he must be one of them.
Okay.
Michael Williams, during the truce period, was back with his family in Offaly. He was taking his parents to mass on a horse and trap, and they were held up just outside the church by the local IRA, who took Michael Williams away. He was taken to Cork. He was actually one of the people who took him there was Sean Moylan, who was later Fianna Fáil cabinet minister and minister for agriculture. And he was executed in Cork, and he's buried on the farm of another later Fianna Fáil TD, a guy called Martin Corrie. And we know exactly where on that farm that Michael Williams is buried, because a local person wrote saying, if you go behind Corrie's house, take this lane, and it's that many number of fields on the left. And I mean, I have been up to the farm investigating, and I can tell you that the field layout has not changed since the 1920s, because I checked it on Ordnance Survey maps going all the way back to the 1860s. But as you said, it's every single person who was disappeared, be it by the British Crown Forces, by the IRA, by the Free State Army, by the Provisional IRA, by the British Army in the North in more recent times, by the UVF, UDA, they're all included. And I have a total of about 170 people who were disappeared for political reasons between 1916 and 2003. And I should say, like, just to qualify, like, this isn't anything to do with suspected serial killers and, people who are missing in the Midlands or anything. It is just people or people who've been, killed for private revenge reasons. This is just people whose disappearances are connected to military and political matters.
Before I let you go, will you tell me about one other heading that I was fascinated by? Tramps.
Okay, so in the early 1920s, there was kind of a moral panic in America about tramps and vagrants. And this, to an extent, spread to Ireland. And you had a lot of British Army soldiers who were shell-shocked after the First World War. Some of them couldn't settle back into normal life, and they just kind of, took to drink to help with their PTSD, drifted from place to place. And the problem for them in Ireland was that, and British Army intelligence officers like Sir Kenneth Strong, based in the Midlands, will actually admit this in their memoirs, that they found it effective to go around disguised as tramps and to go on little horses and carts, or to go around begging as a means of trying to get intelligence information. And in one case, there is a black and tan cadet French in Kilkenny, and he is identified by the IRA very quickly because of his English accent, and he's pretending to be a tramp in the same area he's stationed, and he's executed by the IRA, and his body is thrown in the River Suir and has never been recovered. There was an allegation made a number of years ago that the IRA were using this tramp issue to harass or to murder members of the traveller community in Ireland because they were prejudiced against them. But I have never found any evidence that a single member of the traveller community was killed by the IRA during the War of Independence period. People who claim that, and this is varied from journalists to professors in Trinity College, they will point to this guy, Tom O'Sullivan, who was shot by the IRA as a spy on the Kerry-Cork border in a place called Rathmore during the War of Independence. However, none of the IRA veterans say that he was a member of the traveller community or a tinker. They describe him as, quote, a travelling man, and they say he travelled from place to place singing songs. And that's not how people described the travelling community back in the day. And other people then said, like, he was a peddler, he was a vagrant, he was a tramp. Now, there is one guy, and I should say O'Sullivan wouldn't be a traveller name in Kerry. There is one guy in Tipperary called Jerry O'Brien who is shot, and he is disappeared by the IRA. And somebody says that he was, quote, a tinker. But that could literally mean he was working as a tinsmith. It's not entirely clear. And because of anti-traveller prejudice, sometimes people threw the term out there, tinker, as a term of abuse, but used it against settled people as well as travellers.
It's a fascinating book, and you and I had a conversation shortly after it landed on my desk, and you said to me, it's not a book that you should pick up and read from cover to cover. And there's over 300 pages in this, and you're absolutely right. And it was superb advice, because you can pick it up and you can pick a chapter. Like I mentioned to you, you've got the tramps in there, you've got spies and informers, you've got disappeared by British forces, and you can just read that chapter and everything stands on its own. So it's a superb read and a superb resource from that. It's called The Disappeared, Forced Disappearances in Ireland, 1798 to 1998. The author is Padraig Og O'Rourke. Padraig, thanks a million for talking to us about it. I wish you well with it, and listeners will be delighted to know. And you'll be delighted to know that our listeners can get their hands on it via our website at TRE.radio. We have a virtual bookstore there, and it's available there for people to purchase. All right?
Brilliant. Thanks very much, sir.
Padraig, lovely to talk to you, and look forward to chatting to you again sometime when the next book appears. Thanks a million.
No problem. the subject of the next book, if you're interested, very topical if you're into Irish politics, is Fascism and the Far Right in Ireland, 1923 to 2023.
Fascinating. When is that coming out?
Whenever I can find a publisher.
Listen, Padraig, thanks a million. Mind yourself.
Goes. Thanks, Ger. Bye.
The way you're glowing in the twilight, it still hits me like the first time. Is it just around midnight? Oh, I don't know, 'cause time flies by when I'm with you. I don't know what to say about your eyelids, and oh, I drift away. I still get nervous after all these years, and the words just disappear. Lately all that I can hear is white noise when you speak. White noise, white noise. Lately I don't hear the sound of you talking to me. It's white noise, white noise. Oh, I promise that I'm listening, but when I see your eyes I wanna dive right in. The way you flood my mind, all I hear is white noise when you speak. White noise. Let's go hiding in the shadows and find somewhere only we know. Ain't it funny how life goes? If you were gone, I'd be so lost. What would I do if none of this is true? 'Cause if you left me, my heart would break into a million pieces, scattered round the room. Can we live like lovers do? Lately all that I can hear is white noise when you speak. White noise, white noise. Lately I don't hear the sound of you talking to me. It's white noise, white noise. Oh, I promise that I'm listening, but when I see your eyes I wanna dive right in. The way you flood my mind, all I hear is white noise when you speak. White noise, and it sounds like love, and it sounds like so I promise that I'm listening, but when I see your eyes I wanna dive right in. The way you flood my mind, all I hear is white noise when you speak. White noise.
Like that.
All I hear is white noise when you speak. White noise.
Gavin James and a song called White Noise. Thanks to Padraig O'Rourke for talking to us about the disappeared. I enjoyed that conversation immensely, and I'm really enjoying the stories, as you will too if you manage to pick up a copy of that book. The UK government has set out the terms of reference for an upcoming public inquiry into whether the 1998 Omagh bombing could have been prevented. 29 people, including a woman pregnant with twins, were murdered in the dissident Republican blast in August of that year. The inquiry will examine whether the authorities had sufficient information and intelligence to disrupt the activities of the bombers in the lead up to the attack. The British government has called on the Irish government to establish a similar investigation to look at all elements of the cross-border attack. It's believed that the bomb was prepared in the Republic and driven to Omagh on the day of the attack. Several of those linked to the bombing were living in the south at the time. The UK inquiry was announced on February of last year by the Northern Secretary Chris Heaton-Harris, and it's going to be chaired by Lord Turnbull KC. The terms of reference for the inquiry have now been agreed, as I said. They include the assessment of the threat level from dissident Republicans between December 1997 and August 1998 attack, including any change in it after the signing of the Good Friday Agreement in April of 1988. That should be 98, shouldn't it? Yeah, 98. It will also examine, Good Friday Agreement was 98. Yeah. It was, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. Anyway, it'll also examine the adequacy of the steps taken by the authorities to disrupt those involved in terrorist attacks at the time. at whether intelligence sharing could have been better handled, including with the authorities in the Republic of Ireland. The inquiry will examine a claim made by a foreign senior investigator in the Omagh investigation, Norman Baxter, that police investigations into 2 previous attacks in Moira and Banbridge did not have access to intelligence which could have led to the Omagh attack being thwarted. It will also focus on intelligence said to have been passed to police in the months leading up to the attack by an alleged police agent, Kevin Fulton, which might have been used to prevent the bombing. The nature of monitoring of vehicles and phones that was available and the analysis of it will also fall under the spotlight. The UK government says that the inquiry will be able to sit in both closed and open session depending on the sensitivity of the evidence before it. Laura Turnbull will report to the Northern Secretary and can choose to produce both an open and closed report. In a statement to accompany the publication of the terms of reference, he said, "The inquiry is an entirely independent body. I and my team will decide which are the relevant and important issues to explore and which witnesses will be called. We will do so in a manner which is entirely free of influence from the government or any of the United Kingdom authorities and agencies." There we go. Sorry about getting mixed up with dates and things like that. I'm confused now at myself. Do you know when you get into a state and you confuse yourself and then you say, okay, I'll have to check all that out. I promised that I would take one more track from David Saunders from the album Chance Encounters, Last Minute Notions, and here it is. I hope that you enjoyed this one. Will we start that again? Right. That's not the one I want. Here it is. chance encounters, last minute notions. That's from David Saunders and friends. Thank you to Patricia Traynor for her story on Athlone and Water. Padraig O'Rourke talking to us about the disappeared. Our Spanish-Irish cultural advisor, Antonio Sierra. And thank you. See you Monday next.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with emeraldconnection.net.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this programme, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit tre.radio.